Good morning, Gulfport High. Today is Friday, February 14th, and in this episode, we feature stories reported by our new members of the WGTV staff. So stay with us. Here comes the latest episode of Admiral Ocean. Everyone here at GHS knows our culinary arts program is superior, but now everyone in the entire state knows that too. Each year, the Mississippi Department of Education Office of Child Nutrition sponsors a competition for teams of student chefs to come up with a dish that meets all the requirements for school cafeteria lunches, while still being something you really want to eat. One team from Ms. Wyndham's culinary program went all the way, bringing back the trophy as the best in the state. Reporter Takaya has the story.
On the 13th, GHS Culinary Arts hosted a regional junior chef competition. For this competition, we had two teams compete in the regional junior chef competition, create healthy, flavorful dishes that met the school's nutrition guidelines. Alicia D. on Chefs Galore joined to gain culinary workforce experience, while Jamarion M. of Coastal Chefs participated to pursue his passion for cooking, despite the challenge of leading a team full of mostly juniors.
Representing the junior chef team, Chefs Galore. I wanted to have more experience in the kitchen so that when I go into the culinary workforce, that I'll be able to know what to do for the most part. We made Southern smothered chicken over rice. Since we live in the South, I wanted to make a Southern meal that would be able to be served in the cafeteria. I would be happy. I would feel like a celebrity, really.
Now I led the Coastal Chefs through. I realized I haven't really done much this year, so I decided, why not? I mean, I love to cook, so why not? We made a creamy Mediterranean chicken over pasta. But we know, based on the football team, they like a lot of pasta. And then we also asked a little bit around the school. They love pasta too. One of the main administrators in terms of nutrients in terms of our school menu, she actually wondered if we could add it to the menu. My team was mainly had 3-year ones, so this year they haven't really gotten much kitchen experience. So I say teaching them how to do everything for the most part, getting them right in terms of being in the kitchen.
Coastal Chefs impressed the judges with their creamy Mediterranean chicken over pasta, winning the regional competition and advancing to state championship in Jackson, where they also claimed the state title. Their victory qualifies them for Southeast Nationals, and both teams expressed pride in their work, hoping their dishes will one day be served in school cafeteria.
Senior year is something every student looks forward to, but mixed in with all the excitement of the last year of high school is preparing for the future. Gulfport High always has students who are making themselves ready for what lies ahead after high school. Reporter Lewis brings us to the story about how one GHS student is standing above the crowd as he makes plans for what the next chapter of his life will be.
Since 1962, two high school students from each state are selected each year to attend the U.S. Senate Youth Program. It's an intensive week-long educational experience that provides students a chance to see firsthand the inner workings of our government at a capital level. This year, one of the two students from Mississippi is a GHS student. Jackson, a senior here at Gulfport High, has been selected and will be attending to Washington, D.C. to meet with government leaders. Being selected was no easy task, as Jackson went through a series of tests and interviews in order to be selected.
This was a pretty long and arduous process that required a lot of work. I originally received the application from my counselor in September. After that, I was selected for the next round, in which I went to Hattiesburg and took a civics test. And it was a very difficult test, but I moved on to the semifinalist round, which was interviews in Jackson, Mississippi at the Mississippi Department of Education. And so I interviewed with a panel of educators and people involved in civics and public policy. And out of that interview, I was selected as one of two students from the state of Mississippi to represent our state.
Now, this isn't a vacation. During the week at the nation's capital, Jackson will meet and learn from the highest level elected and appointed officials in our national government. He will be able to attend meetings with the members of the national government and see firsthand how our policies are shaped and how the government is actually run on a daily basis.
So essentially what the program involves is a week-long trip to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And on that trip, I'll be meeting with cabinet secretaries, senators, representatives, a Supreme Court justice, and I'll be meeting with the President of the United States. And in those activities, we'll be talking about civic involvement, public policy, and the ideas and concepts that will propel our nation forward.
Jackson didn't just apply for just because it would look good on a resume or to get a free trip. He has a real interest in how our country's government works and a real desire to become part of the process that keeps our nation running.
I decided to apply for this program because I'm really passionate about service and, in particular, civic service. I think that this nation is one of the greatest that's ever been founded in the history of the world. In this nation, we're one of the only nations that has freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to keep and bear arms, freedom to have a free and open judicial system. And this nation is such a experimental idea that became such a success that I think it's worth protecting and worth keeping for the next generation. So I'm really passionate about forwarding the idea of civic involvement and making sure that every American understands their role in the process and that every American is important in making their voices heard and making sure that our democracy lives on.
Along with this amazing opportunity, Jackson will also receive a $10,000 scholarship to the university of his choice. He is another example of how amazing AMO students are and how GHS students are making a huge impact on the community and our world.
As we mentioned last week, February is CTE month. The programs and the academic institutes here at GHS give students the opportunity to not only learn about different careers, but to get hands-on experience in these fields. Recently, students in Ms. Henshaw's forensics class got to experience what forensic scientists do on a daily basis. Reporter Haley has the story.
As a forensic investigator, deductive reasoning is a very important part of the job. So that is why one of the first things Ms. Henshaw teaches her students is deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a very important skill to have, so when you're at the crime scene, you know what is a part of the crime scene and is evidence and what is not a part of the crime scene and has already been there. So last week, she gave her students the opportunity to test out their skills on a real-life victim. She gave her students 30 minutes to come up with a theory of what happened to the victim and also locate 10 things around the classroom that were out of place and not a part of the crime scene. Students then took the clues from around the room and formed their own theory on what happened to the victim.
So I believe our victim, the altercation started in that area of the classroom. I believe she was possibly stabbed in her neck with said screwdriver in the hand sink in the middle table. Then I believe she tried to make a run for it, as well as covering her neck, but she used her hand to scrape the stool that's over there, which would explain the marks, spreaded handprints. She follows the blood trail as well. And then she ended up falling on the floor over there.
The way her body is, I think somebody hit her with the screwdriver in the sink. So she probably broke something when she got hit a little bit, there's blood all over her.
So what I think happened is the victim was at the desk, she was doing her thing, she was doing her work, and then a murderer comes up behind her, and bam, she gets stabbed. And then she falls onto the ground. She uses a stool to get up, try and get her balance, and she walks away to the front of the desk. Then she falls again. The murderer forces himself or herself on him, stabs her once more. Then she or he takes the murder weapon, drops it in the sink, takes off the gloves, and runs away.
Looking around the class, students noticed items that were out of place. Some were a part of the crime scene and some were just items that had been moved. The students had to use their deductive reasoning skills to figure out which items were actually a part of the crime scene and which items that just had been moved.
Then I'll definitely say those two rubber duckies, one in front of the fourth block basket and the one in the hand sink. Types of skeletal remains. I want to say that there's one under the middle table of the classroom. I believe that may be a femur bone.
Screwdriver in the sink. I don't even know where the screwdriver came from. The forensic board is out of place. Let me think. It's two bones.
The gold duck, one in the sink, and then the skeleton was moved across the room.
The victim then gave the true and final story on what happened to her.
So the story is that I was sharpening a pencil when someone came up beside me, stabbed me here on my collarbone first, then stabbed me in my arm, and as I was trying to run away, I turned around, obviously, and stabbed in the shoulder where I fell down, leaving a hand smear on the stool and crawled, and then I just fell. I couldn't move anymore, and they bashed my head into the floor a couple times, leaving a bruise.
Miss Henshaw at the end of the class told the students the items that were actually out of place in the classroom and not a part of the crime scene.
Under table. Here's my badge.
This lab helped the students test out their deductive reasoning skills in a real-world investigation.
Today is February 14th, Valentine's Day. As everyone has thoughts of love, we would like to ask you to think about showing your love for a person in need, a child. Mykelty is a girl in our district fighting a terminal illness. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is working to raise the money to fulfill her wish to visit a Disney park.
Hello, my name is Mykelty. I live in Gulfport, Mississippi. I have my mom, my dad, and my big brother. Earlier this year, I began kindergarten at St. Jude. I like to swim, dance, ice skate, and do gymnastics and tumbling. My wish is to go to Disney Aulani in Hawaii. Thank you for helping kids like me make your wishes come true.
The Student Council is trying to raise some money to help fulfill this little girl's wish. They are hosting a Teachers vs. Teachers volleyball game during the last 30 minutes of Fifth Block on Friday, February 28th. Admission to the game is only $1, but of course you can donate more if you'd like to. Any student who donates more than $1 will have their name put into a drawing. Last year's Make-A-Wish contribution was only $200. We can certainly beat that. Please consider giving and showing some support for a fellow Gulfport student.
Just because the marching season is over doesn't mean the Admiral Band is done yet. Our students are hard at work preparing their shows for the 2025 indoor season. The Admiral Band has 4 indoor ensembles, which include our varsity and junior varsity winter guards, our indoor percussion, and our indoor winds. These students work hours after school each week putting together and cleaning their show to perfection. They have also started competing to get feedback from the judges, which helps them prepare for their trip to Dayton, Ohio to compete at the WGI World Championship, where they compete against schools from all across the world. But what are these shows about? Well, let's let the directors give you a rundown. What can you tell us about the 2025 Varsity Show?
The 2025 Varsity Show is technically about a love story that goes wrong. It's set in New York City in Central Park. So it's a very dark, kind of eerie kind of night, and it's talking about a raincoat, which symbolizes their relationship. And at the end, the relationship ends, and she realizes that she is way better without that person. The JV show is technically about Pinocchio. It's about being only human or wanting to be human. So going from the Pinocchio figure all the way to being human and realizing what that means.
The 2025 Indoor Percussion Show is entitled The Voyage. It is a Viking-themed show. It starts off with the actual getting on a ship, sailing. The floor and the props make it look like the group is on a ship. You'll see some water. They'll encounter some fog, and then they'll hear like the siren call, so that we have a performer that will be mimicking a siren, and then after they weather that trial, then they will continue the voyage. They'll run into some storms, and then they'll triumph through the storms and emerge victorious of successfully taking the voyage. Our 2025 Indoor Winds show is called Rock Bottom. It is a kind of a play on imagery. So the imagery is a cave with some rocks, and the performers are manipulating the rocks, moving within it, and the meaning behind it is kind of how when we descend into darkness or we descend into our own emotions and we hit rock bottom, actually a lot of good things can come out of that. So when you come out of the rock bottom, maybe you have a new realization or a new skill or a new talent if you allow yourself to kind of overcome the despair of the darkness. And in this particular show, the rocks will open up, and at the end of it, it'll reveal that there's actually a precious gem inside, like a geode, and something beautiful that can come out of going through something hard and tragic.
All 4 teams did extremely well at the most recent Biloxi competition. In fact, our varsity, junior varsity, and indoor winds all placed first. This weekend, February 15th, our indoor groups are traveling to Pace, Florida. We're wishing all of our teams the best of luck.
That's it for today's episode. We're working on our Black History Month special. In the meantime, make sure to look at all the ways classes are celebrating the contributions of African Americans as you walk the halls. We will see you on the next episode.